Welcome to another episode of In Conversation with Alethia. I am your host, Alethia O'Hara-Stephenson. In this show, I sit down with amazing individuals from our community who are doing incredible things. This show will educate, it will empower, and it will inspire you. Today, I am delighted to have one of Shelburne's finest, Ed Roman. He is a multi-talented performer, artist, also a multi-talented musician. He has won many awards across multiple spectrum. And today we're here to talk specifically about a unique album called Red Omen. So Ed, welcome to the show. I am delighted to have you. How have you been?
Good, my friend and my neighbor. How are you? It's good to be here and talking about all this in our wonderful community.
Wonderful. It is so good to see you and so good
You
to
too.
have you on the show. Thank you so much for saying yes.
Pleasure.
So, I read your bio and we've had our pre-conversation, and your bio talks about you're a multi-talented artist and musician. What other instruments do you play? I know you play the guitar, but what else do you play? I see the drums behind you.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I think we're all drummers at heart. We all have, the beat that we walk with every day and the heart that beats in our chest. So we're born, I think, with that feeling of a connectivity to a pulse. And music is a duality. It has this sense of melody and rhythm, obviously, where the Duke Ellington once said, if it got rhythm, it hasn't got anything at all, right? So I gravitated to string instruments as a young kid. We had a piano in our house, and I made noise all the time, and I was coming up with songs and things like that. But my mom in due course found out that, I was like pleading for guitar at a very young age. And she had a secretary friend of hers that, had an old guitar, and I got that one year for Christmas. And it liberated me because I really wanted to have that connectivity to that instrument. And I as time went on, I became a bass player. In high school, everybody's like, nobody wanted to play the bass. Yeah. but I saw it as a whole other challenge, because a teacher from another high school handed a buddy of mine a bunch of records, and a couple of them were Jaco Pastorius records. And here was this guy playing the electric bass and melodic stuff, doing like Charlie Parker's Donna Lee, and doing things on the bass that nobody had really ever done before. And I thought, wait a minute, this is pretty cool too. And I gravitated to that and studied that in college. And that's what I've been sort of doing as a musician, as a bass player. But I'm a songwriter. I play acoustic guitar, and that's sort of my craft, my tool of craft. I go to that when I'm scribbling and writing because it's easy, it's portable. I don't need any electricity. I always say if the power goes out, I'll always have a job, right?
I love it.
And that's what I do. I've been writing songs my whole life,
Okay.
and yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that background about you, so it paints a wonderful picture. I know, just transitioning there, I know that you recently put out a single called Happiness. I think that came out in 2021. What was that journey like in the middle of a pandemic? You were here putting out hits.
Well, you know what? It was like, I'm just trying to write and be creative and do stuff. There's going to be a new single coming out soon again, but that single was just a reflection of the need to cathartically release in some way. And I'm not ashamed to weep, even when I'm happy, because I find elation through this process, and I'm driven to tears, as it were, right? And I think it's so healthy to do that. I think it's wrong to suppress human emotions. And I had this experience where I was on a jury, a forcible confinement weapons charge thing. And the jury deliberations can get crazy, and people are yelling at one another. And I left the room, and I was so upset. I was crying. And the judge, she went into her chambers, right, and she came out with this bag of marbles. Oh. And she gave them to me, and she said, She looked at me in the face. She said, "Don't ever be ashamed to show your humanity." And she said, "And just in case you lose your marbles, here you go." And she gave me this. I'll never forget that. Try to bring humor and elation into this other situation that was, altogether really hard to deal with. So that song has, I think really it's a diametrically opposed thing, a yin and a yang. Try to find the positive out of the negative. And we've all been going through so much that I've been with friends talking about stuff and crying because it's hard. Life experience can be difficult.
Absolutely. And I can totally appreciate that. Just the world has been in such a chaotic mess right now that a little bit of happiness helps, right? Happiness goes a long way. So that's incredible.
Sure does.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And, just talking about your songwriting background, the reason that we're here is to talk about Red Omen. And, what is Red Omen? I can't help but think that it ties into your name. So can you just tell us a little bit about that? And
well, you get full points for that and the big snake on the wall, when it comes to the win, right? It's an anagram of my own name. And as a dyslexic, I mean, what people understood dyslexia was this sort of perception where words are flipped in certain ways. And what dyslexia really is, and what it used to be was that, but what it is as we've come to understand it more, a spatial and pictorial comprehensive gift. I'm gonna reframe it as that, like Henry Winkler, he always is talking about it's a gift. But when a dyslexic is, and this is why so many dyslexics gravitate to the artistic or tactical environments of who we are as people, whether that even be playing an instrument or dance or being a mechanic or a carpenter, things that are really, important and noble in terms of what we can offer to society. So print, and I reading is important, but it's very two-dimensional. And the learning experience for me, even as a teacher for many years, being a teacher of music, I understand that, when you're engaging in the instrument, in a conversation, in a process, there's this exchange and other kind of learning going on, just like in a conversation that's character driven. We can learn a lot in print from a text, but so much can be misconstrued. Whereas like the environment for like a conversation gives to, as I say, these sort of heightened colors inside of words and dynamics. Red Omen became a song that I found through the process of, artistic epiphany. It was a story about me, the sort of allegories that existed in my life. Like, I had this real crazy affiliation with Jimi Hendrix, and I still do today. I'm into the paranormal. There's these moments alluding to the song where I'm flying with Jimi Hendrix in a UFO to Machu Picchu, and but all of it also has this sort of idea that you need to trust in yourself and believe in yourself. In the video, in the clip at the end, there's a part where the character Red Omen falls backwards into a mirror and has to catch himself. Like, you have to believe in yourself. And as a dyslexic in the community that I grew up in the 70s, growing up in the education system, it was really hard because I had to go to special class. I spent a lot of extra time with my mom practicing reading. She, that's one of the reasons she put a guitar in my hands, was because she understood that I responded in a positive way to this tactical thing that I was working with. And to this day, at 85, she's still encouraging me for what I do. So I reached out to my manager and said, look, I really want to try to turn this into an animation. I somehow, and for 2 years, I looked for anybody that would be interested in putting that together, including colleges and universities. So I finally found this guy, and Nelson Diaz in New York City, who put this wonderful video together for me. And at the same time, we reached out to the Dyslexic Society. So here in Canada, through the Davis Dyslexic Society in the United States, we have chapters and facilitating offices in every province.
Wow.
The video then consequently has become a figurehead for the Dyslexic Society here in Canada. But as a result of that, it's shown at like hundreds of film festivals around the world, from Moscow to Los Angeles, and won an incredible amount of awards and acclamation. But it has brought so much attention to the Dyslexic Society and raised awareness and monies
That's
for kid.
incredible.
Yeah, it's what you kind of hope for as an artist, that somehow the art goes past liberating you.
Right.
You know, somehow it connects in a bigger way to your living environment.
Exactly, definitely. I love that. And, you know, you touched on so many gems there, but I want to find out, you know, what made you decide to put yourself out there, to be brave enough to share your gift with the world?
My mom and my family, like it's, you know, so often, you know, we grow food here and I grow a lot of vegetables. And I think that anything you do, my mom and dad said, they may not have understood completely,
Right.
but they always said, be passionate about what you want to do. I don't care if it's being a brain surgeon, a shoe salesman, or whatever, but be happy and be passionate about it. So they were always encouraging me to do it. And you know, growing up with the friend base that I had, we were always challenging each other as young musicians and learning from one another, rival bands, competitions that, you know, and then even in college, it's the same thing. You find a different level of competitiveness for wanting to strive to be better for yourself every day. You kind of grow past that place of I need approval, but finding a way to make it work kinetically in the material world is a whole other story, because you can make art all day, and that's great. You should be expressive in whatever way you can be, right? Whether it's sandcastle making or doing something with your kids, or, you know, it makes life real. And
but it's another dimension when you're now able to impact millions, right? You're impacting the world with your music and sharing your special gift with everyone and making it okay.
And it's okay to do that. That's the thing about the day and age that we live in, Alethia, is that telecommunications has become so fast and robust that I love watching somebody's human experience. I follow this woman on TikTok. She works the wok. It's just a camera over her wok. She's from Taiwan, and she just cooks Taiwanese meals. And I could sit there for like an hour watching, because she is enjoying the experience and sharing it. And Red Omen, actually, ironically, is one of those things that the more I gave away, the more that it went out and came back in this feeling like, wow, you know, it's bigger than me. It's like, you know, like I want to weep sometimes when I think about it, that it's done so well and connected with so many people. And like a lot of the music, it's the same thing. I'm humbled by it a lot of the time. I worked hard towards it, but I didn't expect it to be like this.
No, that's incredible. It's an incredible video. I had a chance to watch it a few times, and of course, you know, seeing the work on social media. So it is quite an accomplishment. I believe you had a showing here in Toronto at one of Toronto's festivals as well.
That's right. Yeah, we were here. Well, there's a bunch of them actually that just happened in the last little while, but it was so neat to see it like at the Carlton on a big screen, and then it's question answer, talking to the audience about it, and people like that's the thing. It's like it's surreal almost, like and I just like a regular person, you know, like I said, I just want to grow food, cut my lawn, talk to my neighbors, hang out with my family, just simple things, right? So that whole world for me is, you know, potent. But at the same time, I'm reminded of myself all the time that like I'm just a farmer.
I'm here with the amazing, talented Ed Roman. Ed, thank you so much. So we left off earlier talking about Red Omen and that it was showcased at one of Toronto's film festival. What was that experience like for you?
Well, like I'm saying, it's surreal. Because, you know, you're first of all accepted into the festival, and that feels really great. Like I said, anything that you do that feels like you're connecting is huge. And then, you know, you're in Toronto at a well-known old theater like the Carlton. It's on a big screen. There's tons of people in the room, and they're watching what's going on, and you're sitting there, you know, and I'm almost speechless in
Right.
knowing that it's doing that, and then that it wins an award through that process as well. And then question and answer, talking about like again how the video was made, why I wrote the song, you know, what it's done, its purpose. It's such a wonderful feeling because like it's like growing a garden again for me. I hate seeing food go to waste. And effort. I know we sometimes we fail at the things that we try, and sometimes it's out of necessity because we're learning something in that process. I've failed in gardening because of weather. There's things that will destroy what I have done,
Right.
and I have no choice, and I have to work harder at rebuilding something in some way. And music has that same process when you can see it work and share it and reap the reward of happiness. Like you mentioned the single, that part of things, like it's so easy to pay for something that you think may be materialistically placating you through some happiness. It's okay to do that, like, you know, whatever it may be. But when you can create something simplistically out of your hands because you had this thought, you know, and you decided to start scribbling and write a song and get into it and feel something from it and feel a connectivity to it.
It's special.
It's special, you know. And as I say, to know that it's played at so many festivals, even like in my own hometown, more so for me, like it's great because like I'm getting the acclamation. People are like, Ed, you wrote the song, and people are talking to me. I'm doing interviews. It's in books. I mean, they ran it in like Billboard magazine. There was a clip about it from an emerging artist. It's like huge, but ultimately it's like knowing the attention is always being directed to the Dyslexic Society and helping kids.
Yes.
Because when I was there, I didn't have that. Thank God. I had a mom that when the school said, hey, you know what? We want to put your son on Ritalin because he's hyperactive. My mom went, no. You know, he loves to learn and he's a passionate young man. So let's not suppress that. And she took it upon herself, like with my sister, who has issues too with reading. And she's ambidextrous. She can write with two hands at the same time. She just worked with us. And to this day, I still say to my mom, Mom, thank you. You know why? And thank you because you wanted to be a mom. You wanted to be a parent.
At what age were you diagnosed, or you know, at what age did you realize that you have this gift? Let's put it that way.
About 7, and then I went for the special testing, and it was about a week and a half of it, and then the doctor said, "Yeah, he's dyslexic, and that's what's going on." And people thought at first at school, he's like, "No, I need glasses. I need glasses now because of my age."
Yes.
Sound like Groucho Marx, but. At the same time, school for me was about, like, again, 3-dimensional connectivity. I broke the rules. I was snuck in through the school window to where this piano was that we couldn't access because the door was locked. And I started playing at recess and got in trouble, you know, like, but it was good trouble. I was so excited about wanting to touch those instruments that I thought to myself, even as a young kid, I was like, you know, to the teacher, you're crazy because I'm not in there lighting matches. I'm playing a piano. You know what I mean? Right. Like, so I've always found music to be so artistically, you know, delinquent. In a way, right? Because it's eccentric also too in some ways. It allows you to break out of the shell, even the 21st century shell, to be what you want to be. Character can come through music. So often when I'm playing live, I'm driven by the character of the song, no different than I'm pulled by the catalyst of the idea of a song through it. I'm being asked questions. Instead of trying to figure it out myself, it's asking questions of me, just like when I'm performing the song. How am I feeling? What am I going through this process? So it's artistic almost in nature too. It allows you, like I say, to break out of your shell, you know.
That's cool. Did you, you talked about getting in trouble with the piano. Were there any challenges that you faced as a young adult or as a child growing up as a result of your gift?
Well, summer school was hard because, you know, I was there a couple of years and that was really a drag. That was like, you know, I wanted to be with my friends. Tutoring, I had 4 years of tutoring. And that was after school. Plus, like I said, my mom, especially when I was younger, but that was all the time with my mom. I was always doing more work than most kids just to maintain a B or C plus average.
Yeah.
But I excelled in other ways where, like, I remember, like, I love history and anthropology, and I had some great teachers in high school and some not so good teachers in high school. But the ones I loved having conversations in class and asking questions. And I remember, like, I could talk about so many things that I had learned, but when it came time to expressing myself on a written test, I would get docked so many spelling marks that I would, I'd have the right answer, but I would, almost fail the test, right? And it occurred to me, even as a teacher, that, I can correct a student for whatever it may be, but I also know they have to learn in their own way. I could say, well, yeah, put your fingers like this, or use this kind of a pattern, or think about it more this way. I don't want to tell them directly what to do, especially if they know what they want to do. But school can be very rigid that way in the academic system. And I think it needs to have more, like I say, I've talked to the president of the Dyslexic Society a number of times, this three-dimensional aspect to the learning and education process. The Davis method is accepted by 56 nations around the world and funded through federal or systems that are local, but not in Canada and not in the United States where it was developed. So that's why they go through big fundraising programs every year in the US and here in Canada. So, again, I think you got to think artistically about everything to try to make things work. But, yeah.
And it's what's interesting is that I'm finding more and more studies now focusing on students who are engaged in the arts. They tend to perform academically better, than students who are not doing anything. So I think there is probably a nice correlation right there.
Exactly. You hit it 1,000% on the head. And that balance is essential. I remember when I was a kid in grade school, about 1975, 76, I was in kindergarten. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, by grade 3, I'm going to be in band. Like, we had band with like instruments and like a drum set and a bass guitar and all this stuff in our grade school system, in the Catholic system. And all of a sudden in 1977, they got rid of it because of funding issues, and they just thought it wasn't there. We played recorder and ukulele and things like that, choral stuff, singing, we did plays. But I was devastated when I didn't have that opportunity. And I think that balance for me was a struggle all through grade school, because no matter what I did when I got home and I had homework to do or reading, I spent every other waking moment I could trying to play an instrument or write a song. So that balance is important. For me, it was important to keep myself happy.
Right.
Like you said, it's so important to find that balance. I think the same thing goes with agriculture. I think kids should start, growing things in school, right?
You might be onto something there.
Hey, we could start something, Alethia. We're on to it,
Awesome. I love it. You mentioned the Davis method. Can you explain a little bit what that is? I'm not familiar with the term.
Well, Ron Davis is a sculptor, and he himself is a dyslexic. So many years ago, he developed this sort of process of reading, but also using sort of the three-dimensional aspect of the information in a different way. In terms of not memory and comprehension, but like with my mom, some of the things that we had to do were really slow ourselves down. And when we slowed ourselves down, it gave us time to think more about what each sentence, paragraph, phrase, or whatever linguistically they were trying to say. A dyslexic's mind, and what a whole bunch of dyslexics are in a room, it's like blah, 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 because we're firing so fast a lot of the time. Right. That it's like a little epiphany after a little epiphany. And what the dyslexic Davis method does, I'm tripping over my own words, is it allows you to do that. And then, like with my mom, ironically, go through these exploratory conversations about the word or what more of the meaning of all this is. Consequently, what you almost end up developing more so is a photographic memory.
Ah.
People say, how do you remember so many lyrics? How do you know how to memorize all that stuff? It's through this process that it allows to filter through a number of times so it sticks in a completely different way. And I don't think it's better or worse than anything else. It's just we learn differently through that process. So also, like, for instance, when a dyslexic comes across a large word that they may not understand, phonetically, they may understand what's happening. The phonics are there, but putting the word together and having a difficult time putting that word together forces the process to slow down. Hence, you may lose the comprehensive process in learning what the sentence is trying to say. Then you have to go through it a second or third time, and then boom, you've got it. So that's why I would say, I spent a lot of extra time trying to keep up with this process that was always demanding of something academically of me in school, whether it was reading chapters or something in science or trying to write an essay or all of that stuff. But again, my experience as a teacher and talking even about dyslexia with students that aren't dyslexic, it again sort of illustrates a different three-dimensional thinking process. Even with music, you can see it as very clinical and flat.
Wow.
And if you see music outside of that realm, to allow the instrument that you're working on to become an extension of yourself, just like words in a conversation that is just happening out of the blue, one of those porch chats that I loved that as a kid, growing up, hearing conversations between adults.
I love that.
So
I'm going to cut you right there. I hate to cut you mid-sentence, but we need to take a break. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to have you on another time so that we can finish this conversation.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks. I just don't shut up.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. Thank you so much. Join us next time for another episode of In Conversation with Alethia.